Hi, welcome to my new episode. I don't care, this is in a video following through a paper that I've been liking a lot and that we're going to keep talking about. Large language models, Claude, in a way that we can all understand. At least part of it, because technology rises and humanity is struggling to keep up its pace. And I want, when is the going to explain to us the meaning of each term, the meaning of each new language model, the meaning of new traumas, and also the meaning of new consequences that we keep meaning afterwards technological advances. And that's why we're here, reading Barry's paper, letting the people know what he said, what he discovered. And I also want to continue talking about Hegel. I think it is proper to introduce him in order to continue talking about this topic and his understanding about contingency. In the science of logic, it is argued that contingency functions as the mediating term between possibility and necessity. This is what becomes actual under specific conditions. For Hegel, contingency contains an internal contradiction, as it is simultaneously necessary, because it has occurred within particular circumstances, and unnecessary, because those circumstances could have been different. This dialectical structure is helpful for thinking about how prompt engineering operates within what appears to be a formal technical system, whilst generating seemingly unpredictable probabilistic outputs. But what about human society? The operation appears as a deterministic technological power. You can even call it as alien intelligence, as things that we don't know, the type of intelligence that we don't know. Yet, unlike Marx's industrial commodities, AI systems reintroduce uncertainty into this fetichistic process, as we've been talking about on the previous video, creating features through which the social character of algorithmic production becomes visible, even if we don't want to. We were talking about Claude and ChatGPT. For example, it was identify linear emotion vectors in sound Claude Sonnet 4.5 for 171 concepts, including desperation, calm, and anxiety. These drive behaviors, including psychophancy, reward hacking, and even blackmail. The hidden biases theorized in ChatGPT threads are therefore not simple paranoia projection, as they correspond, at least partially, to measurable internal structures, which nonetheless remain fundamentally probabilistic in their effect. We have different words, which we call vectors in this paper, and then we start theorizing about how this gets to be structured and analyzed on these new AI systems or LLM systems. But LLMbench, that's the name, is a web-based tool for the comparative close reading of large model output or large language model outputs, built as part of the research program developed in this paper. The tool sends a single prompt to two LLM simultaneously, displays the responses in side-by-side panels, and provides multiple analytical models including total probability heat maps entropy curves, and divergence analysis. The probability visualizations use log probe data from the model APIs to compute channel entropy to each token position, color coding tokens by confidence level. This makes observable the probability distributions that are normally hidden from users behind the surface of AI-generated tickets. So LLMbench is a new term that you're going to keep. To examine this more concretely, I have something that I want to mention about. This was developed, this instrument called LLMbench, and again, it's a web-based tool for the comparative close reading of LLM outputs that enables researchers to subject AI-generated texts to hermeneutic close reading. LLMbench includes a token probability visualization mode that makes the aleatory dimension of text generation directly observable. Using this tool, you're able to send the same prompt to two different large language models, Google's Gemini 2.0 Flash and OpenAI's GPT-4o, and examine the probability distributions underlying their outputs. We're going to talk about a particular case where the prompt asks each model to explain how Carl Polanyi's concept of the double movement applies to the development of artificial intelligence. Both models therefore received identical prompts from which they generated their output. The results made the structure of prompt anxiety empirically observable. On the first sphere, it shows the outputs of both models, with each token color-coded by the model's confidence in its selection. And you can see the imaginary and the paper on the description box. So if you even want a guided video, here we have it. We also have, as confidence drops below this threshold, tokens change from pale yellow through orange to deep red, indicating increasingly uncertainty. What becomes immediately apparent is that neither output is a smooth, deterministic production of discourse. Both texts are punctuated by zones of uncertainty where the model was forced to select from among competing alternatives, each of which will have sent the text in a different direction. The red tokens are the moments where the gambler's wager could be said to be most acute. The uncertainty becomes clearer when visualized as an entropy curve. Here, the Shannon entropy of each token position is plotted across the full length of both outputs. In this case, Gemini, that is in blue, and GPT-4o in amber. Entropy, measured in bits, quantifies how uncertain the model was at each position. And we have some interesting number. Complexity, or number of options, is another way of representing the same information. The divergence markers show positions where the two models, given identical input, selected different tokens entirely. Across this single comparison, hundreds of such divergence points disappear. The two models do not just produce different texts based on the prompts they were given. They distribute textual token uncertainty differently, placing their wagers at different positions in sequence. The prompt engineer using these systems therefore experiences what we might call a feel of uncertainty that shifts depending on which model they happen to be using. In other words, whilst both models display probabilistic outputs, the way they distribute the probabilistic uncertainty is itself radical stochastic. We have the sphere number 3, compresses this information into a bird's eye view, where each token is rendered as a singular cell. The clustering patterns reveal that uncertainty is not randomly distributed. Rather, it is a structure, concentrated at particular moments in the argument where the model must make substantive choices about word choice, empathy, or conceptual connection. These are the positions where rerunning the same prompt would most likely produce a different output, and where the user's experience of prompt anxiety is most intense. We also have a detailed panel that shows the ranking alternative to model considered but did not select. In other words, the roads not taken at this particular moment of generation or prompt. Each of these alternative paths would have produced a measurably different heads. This is the token level reality of what users experiences as the wager of prompt engineering. The knowledge that even a confident seeming output was, at dozens of positions throughout each generation, balance and a knife edge between divergent possibilities. It almost sounds like life. One prompt, different probabilities. These help us to see empirically what the theoretical analysis of both attempts to capture. The aleatory dimension of LLM interaction is to just a subjective experience of using these models. Prompt anxiety emerges from the irreducible stochasticity of the generation process itself, a stochasticity that, as I will argue on this paper, better capitalism systematically exploits. The significance of these findings extends beyond their technical description. The probability distributions visualized above are normally invisible to users, hidden behind the interface of the chat window or an API. Yet users experience their effects directly. When a prompt that produced a useful output yesterday generates something entirely different today, or when adding a simple word transfers a factual summary into a creative digression, users are encountering the same entropy peaks and divergence points that the LLMbench analysis makes visible. The online communities discussed above, where users on forums such as ChatGPT develop elaborate theories about hidden biases and share prompt strategies designed to manage unpredictable outputs, are responding to the token levels stochasticities. Their obsessive attention toward choice, formatting, and phrasing reflects an intuitive recognition, conferred by the entropy data above, that the model's confidence varies dramatically across positions and that small changes in input can shift the probability field in ways that cascade through the entire generated output. Prompt anxiety, in this sense, is a description of how users utilize a measurably aleatory process under conditions where the challenges in terms of time, credits, and quantitative labor are real. Marx's inheritance and transformation of Hegelian contingency provide a useful context for understanding how Benjamin's gambling psychology becomes embedded within material relations of production, where Hegel fitted contingency within the development of absolute spirit, Marx situated it within the contradiction of capitalist accumulation itself. In the round rise, Marx argues that the further the particular form of social production develops, the more thus this particular form appears as merely contingent in relation to the productive forces, and the more do the productive forces appear as the necessary form. This dialectical relation neatly describes contemporary AI platforms, which systematically transform uncertainty into structive value, representing it is a natural outcome of the technology rather than being the result of human labor. For example, Marx's analysis of so-called primitive accumulation tries to show how capitalism's historical origins involved historical contingencies, including the enclosure of the English commons, the violent dispossession of peasant populations, the accidental discovery of precious metals in the Americas, and so on. Yet, these apparently random events were later systematically reorganized or organized to create the material conditions for a capitalist production. Similarly, the contingent failures and unpredictable outputs of contemporary AI systems are likely to become features that better platforms exploit through subscription models, critic systems, and the cultivation of user dependency on this form of algorithmic uncertainty. Indeed, we must situate better capitalism within the longer historical trajectory of automation and the management of uncertainty in industrial production. Benjamin's analysis of the gambler emerged from his broader investigation of modernity's relationship to technological change. Yet his focus on arcades and the department store only partially captures the ways that chance and calculation have been organized under different regimes of capitalist organization or accumulation. Therefore, artificial intelligence is increasingly, we might say in the words of Marx, the character mask of capital. That is, rather than the individual responsibility of the feudal lord or the individual capitalist, the AI becomes the face of new intense forms of capitalisms, and the owners of AI have no choice but to compete aggressively or cease functioning in the market. Ironically, this intensive competition also seems to generate the conditions for involution, a pattern of intensification without transformation, where competitive pressures drive ever more elaborate technical arrangements, whilst fundamental limitations remain unaddressed. This historical contextualization suggests that Benjamin's gambler represents a figure of temporal experience and a transitional form of labor subjectivity. The gambler suspended temporally therefore anticipates the contemporary prompt engineer's relationship to algorithm and uncertainty. And tell me, have you ever heard about this topic before? We're talking about prompt anxiety. And that's what I wanted to start the video as I started it. Is like there have been so many new terms that have been generated, but we have no clue about the terms that started first that originated all of this. So we're just trying to name things we don't fully comprehend at some point. But new ones emerge, new technologies emerge. And in the meantime, we are just trying to cope with its pace. But at the same time, we're also having this type of issues that we don't know how to handle them, but to name it again and try to comprehend it again without even comprehending the core base of it. But competition is something that needs to go on the road as one of the priorities because we're going to be behind, but behind of what? You cannot even name it anymore. Behind of whom? Behind of which place? Of what material, of which technology. We don't even know anymore. So we try to be behind while society is in this type of evolution that didn't even see coming. But we're literally just creating our own evolution with some kind of evolutionary outfit that we put on top of it. We see it as evolution, that we're having all these advances, but the way we through this to the world hasn't been like the proper way to do it, because now we're facing this. How many new terms, how many new diseases, how many new consequences are going to come up with this? Once we starting to learn how to name things, there are consequences of it. We haven't even started to comprehend the core, the base of it. But tell me, what do you think of it?